From one imperialist holding to another, Tibet. In the 1980s and 1990s, it was all the rage. World leaders, Hollywood actors, rights activists, all of them would speak out for Tibet, for its independence from China. But today, the movement seems to have lost its momentum. The world appears to have moved on. It's sad but true. Yesterday, March 10th, was Tibet Uprising Day. On that day in 1959, Tibetans rose up in revolt against China, and the response was brutal. China's crackdown killed tens of thousands of Tibetans. Their spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, was forced to flee. Since then, he stayed in India as the most high-profile refugee in the world. Now, the Dalai Lama is 89 years old. He will turn 90 in July this year. So naturally, there are questions about his successor. Who will lead the Tibetans in the future? Well, the Dalai Lama has an answer. He says his successor will be born outside China, in the free world, as he called it. Let me first explain what the belief is. The Dalai Lama is not a person. It is a position. The spiritual and political leader of Tibet is called the Dalai Lama. When he dies, he is believed to reincarnate. His soul is transferred to the body of a child. That is the belief. The current Dalai Lama has been very cagey about his successor. Once he said the system would end with him. On another occasion, he said his successor would be a woman. And now he says the successor will be born outside China. Of course, Beijing is having none of it. The communist rulers are feeling a sudden love for religion. They are now pointing to Tibetan traditions. They say the next Dalai Lama must come from China. Listen to this.
The 14th Dalai Lama is a political exile who engages in anti-China separatist activities under the cloak of religion and has no right to represent the Tibetan people at all. Respecting and protecting the inheritance of Tibetan Buddhism, including the inheritance of the Dalai Lama, should abide by the laws and regulations of the state, follow religious rituals and historical conventions, and follow the method of domestic searching and lot drawing from the golden urn.
You cannot make this up. China is saying we must protect Tibetan Buddhism. This is the same China that demolished monasteries, that slaughtered Tibetan monks. Then why the sudden religious awakening? Because of politics. If China can control the next Dalai Lama, they can control Tibetans, basically create a puppet leader. But for that, the successor must come from China. If they're born in India, for example, China will not be able to control them. Hence this tussle over succession. Expect more clarity by July this year. That's when the Dalai Lama will turn 90. He says he will reveal more details on his successor by then, which brings us to the larger story here, the story of the Tibetan movement. We are talking about a very proud people, very proud and very distinct. Their culture is thousands of years old. So they had every right to resist Chinese occupation. But that's not why the West supported them. Their reason, the reason for Western support, was purely political. Tibet was a useful tool for the Americans in the 1980s, the 1990s, and then the 2000s. A tool to keep China in check, a tool to build pressure on the Chinese. Every US president since 1990 had met the Dalai Lama. A streak that ended with Donald Trump. He did not meet the Dalai Lama during his first term, nor did his successor Joe Biden, because by then, the US was more focused on Taiwan. And that sums up the problem, really. All this support was never based on principle, it was based on strategic advantage. You think the Americans care about Taiwan's self-rule? No, they care about putting pressure on China. In Europe, you think they care about Ukraine's sovereignty? Evidently not. They care about checking Russia. It's a lesson for people and movements around the world. Pick your supporters carefully. See what they're really after. As for the Tibetans, this is a crucial period. The Dalai Lama wrote an op-ed recently. He has reiterated his offer to Xi Jinping. Let me quote from what he said. Despite Tibet's historical status, I have believed and still believe that the Tibetan people can thrive with their distinct identity, language and culture on the Tibetan plateau while remaining within the People's Republic of China. Basically, he's pitching a political solution. We will stay within China's fold, but we want more autonomy and rights. China will never agree to that. If they do, similar demands will pop up elsewhere, like in Xinjiang or Inner Mongolia. Tibet's best hope is the looming succession. It will indeed be a day of grief, but it will also present them with an opportunity to once again seize the headlines, to once again revitalize their movement. Because this is a people who deserve freedom, not China's repression.
Merci beaucoup. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Namaste, Mr. President.
Bharat Kelogon, Komeri Namaste.
How many people generally follow you in interviews?
Typically, in a month, we have viewers up to 150 million. That's more than twice the population of France. And in the last 2 years, we had 3 billion viewers. So I say, Laurent, this is your chance to be famous. You're on Firstpost. One word to describe your equation with Prime Minister Modi.
Amitié.
As India and France work together, are you creating a new era of non-alignment in the technology space?
India is a training superpower. 1 million engineers a year, more than all of Europe and the US combined. So we have that partnership. We have a partnership on the environment and the economy. We also have civilian nuclear programs, and that is something we've developed far beyond the France-India relationship. So we want to work together on AI.
And then comes China with its DeepSeek, creating models at a fraction of the cost. Did that innovation take you by surprise? Did that breakthrough make you sit up and think, what did the Chinese do and how?
But what did DeepSeek do? They took everything that was already available from the last AI model, and then they recalibrated it.
So are you going to ban Chinese AI in France?
So we don't have this American approach of banning tech because of where it comes from.